talk about today is the consequences of sin, disobedience, transgression. My young friends, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created different makhluk. You have angels, you have human beings, you have jinnat. And Allah Himself knows what else Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Look at the size of the universe. Okay, today they're talking about multiverse. Allah knows best what they will talk about tomorrow. Different makhluk. Angels are nurani makhluk. They don't commit sin. They don't have the urge to wrong Allah. Even if they wish, they can't commit sin. Allah says, لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. Talking about angels, Allah says in the Quran, they don't disobey Allah. It's a very obedient makhluk, submissive. ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. What do? Whatever Allah has ordered them to do, that's what the angels do. They never disobey. And then you've got human beings and jinnat, people like yourself and myself. Allah's created within us the urge to do good and the urge to commit sin and transgress. Allah says, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Allah created it with a conscious of what is right for it and what is wrong for it. Because Allah has created within us the urge to do good and bad, we as human beings do good and we also transgress and wrong Allah. Every single one of us, other than those إِلَّا مَنْ أَصِمْ, other than those that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has protected, like the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. Sometimes the shaitan gets the better of us. Sometimes our nafs gets better of us. And sometimes it's just peer pressure. We're influenced by others. And as a result of which we will transgress and we will disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, my young friends, a good believer is he. وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ ذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ فَاسْتَغْفِرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَلَمْ يُصِرُّوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. A good believer is he when his nafs gets the better of him, shaitan gets the better of him, peer pressure gets the better of him, and he wrongs and he disobeys Allah. He remembers Allah. He remembers Allah. He turns to Allah. He regrets what he's done. And he pleads with Allah. And he asks Allah to purify him, to forgive him. And he doesn't persist in evil and sin. This is a good believer. My young friends, today we are not just sinning. Majority of us are drowning, are immersed in sin. We are drowning in sin. You know as well as I. Selling dope, taking dope, weed. Well, okay, how many people you will find in the front saf, but they take weed? Their wives take weed. They don't even see weed as being haram. Every sin that you can imagine as a community, we are committing, we're involved in it. But okay, we're masters in it. We're leading the way forward in it. Our children know better. They've seen our elders, they follow in their footsteps. And the sad thing is, we don't see anything wrong in it. This is the dangerous bit. There's a carefree attitude. This is so dangerous because this is not the attribute of a believer. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Sayyid Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu relates, that a believer, he sees his sin as if a mountain, which he fears that will fall down upon him. Whereas an immoral person, he sees his sin as if a fly sat on his nose, which he so easily waves away, pushes away. He doesn't regard his sin as anything. Today, my young friends, we don't see anything wrong. Halanki guna sins are khatarnak. Not only are they detrimental to the individual that commits them, they're detrimental to society as a whole. When you're sinning, you're not just harming yourself. You're harming society, you're harming the environment, you're harming the animals, you're harming the fish, you're harming the birds, you're harming the trees. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, مَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَيَعْفُو عَن كَثِيرٍ. Any calamity that befalls you, any musibah that befalls you, is because of your guna. It's because of what your hands have earned. And Allah pardons much. Allah says in the Quran, زَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. Fasad has appeared in the land and sea. Corruption, evil has appeared in the land and sea. Because of what people have done, because of their a'mal. So that He may make them taste part of what they have done, earned, so that they may return. Look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this verse. Allah says, زَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. Corruption, evil has appeared in the land. Whether it's in the form of earthquakes, whether it's in the form of tsunamis, whether it's in the form of hurricanes, whether it's in form of plagues, whether it's in the form of landslide. Why do these things happen? Why do they appear in the land and sea? Allah says, بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ. This is because of the a'mal of mankind, of human beings. It's because of what they've done, their transgression, their oppression, their disobedience. One of the causes of these disasters is disobedience to Allah, going against Allah's teachings, transgressing and oppression. So when you're sinning, you're not just harming yourself, you're harming others. God forbid, there's an earthquake in Warsaw. May Allah make it so that it never happens. But hypothetically, if there's an earthquake in Warsaw, who do you think it will affect? Who do you think it will affect? Everyone. Just Warsaw? Depending on the size of the earthquake on the Richter scale? Will it just affect Warsaw? If it's a big earthquake? No. It won't just affect Warsaw. Cannock, Stratford, Birmingham, Coventry, depending on how big the earthquake is, it might just affect the whole of Midlands. It might just affect the whole of England. England's just a small island. What will happen when there's an earthquake? And that's the teaching of Rasulullah. As Aisha once asked, Ya Rasulullah, أَنَحْلِكُ وَفِينَ الصَّالِحُ? Will Allah destroy us when there are pious people living amongst us? Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا كَثُرُ الْخَبْثِ. When evil is rife, transgression, oppression, you're disobeying Allah's command. When this is rife, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't look at the good people and the bad people. Allah takes them all. Allah takes them all. So when an earthquake comes, will just those that were sinning be affected? How many people will die? How many children will die that are ma'soom, that have never wronged Allah, that have never disobeyed Allah? How many elderly people will die? Hundreds and thousands. Those that don't die, what will happen to many? They'll get crushed under rubble. What will happen? They lose their limbs. What will happen thereafter? They've got no legs, they've got no arms. What will they do for the next 50, 60 years of their life? They'll be in need. They'll be in need. Some of them will be bedridden. What will happen to your houses? They'll collapse. It took you a lifetime just to pay off the mortgage for one. What will you do for the next one? What will you do for the next one? What will happen to businesses? Bichare businessmen will be on the street just like those in Syria at this moment in time. Multi-millionaires will be on the streets with begging bowls, looking for something that will sustain them. How long do you think after this earthquake they'll be able to rebuild Walsall or the Midlands? Not in your lifetime. So what will happen to all those people and all those children that are born within this era? They'll be at a disadvantage. So when you wrong Allah, you're not just harming yourself. You're harming society as a whole. You're harming others. You're harming animals. You're harming fish. You know, when people commit zina, it only takes 2 people to commit zina. What happens when people commit zina? These 2 people are committing zina here. These 2 people are committing zina there. These 2 people are committing zina. What happens? You get sexually transmitted diseases. You get children that are born with AIDS. What did that child do to deserve AIDS? He's born with AIDS. This disease is then passed to others. But he didn't commit a crime. But he's born like this. How many children, when people commit zina, those that have committed zina have no interest in this child and they will kill this child through abortion? How many times they will leave the child on the street to die or to be picked up by others? This child will never receive the love of his mother and father. He will grow up at a disadvantage. How many times when they commit zina, the man that committed zina, he's not interested when the woman tells him that I'm expecting. He'll disappear and he'll leave the child with this woman. This child will be now brought up by a single parent. It's Allah's nizam that this doesn't work. Because a father has something to offer the child. A mother has something to offer the child. This child will be deprived of that father and what that father has to offer. So when you're wronging Allah, do not be disappointed, my young friends. On that day when you meet your Creator, there are hundreds and thousands of people in Allah's court waiting to bring a case against you because they were harmed when you transgressed. Allah says, لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا. 2 things that we learn from this verse. لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. You know, these calamities, these disasters that appear, these punishments, this is not because of all the sins that you commit. You know, these disasters that we see, the earthquakes, the plagues, the tsunamis, this is not the punishment of every sin that you commit. Allah says, وَيَعْفُوا عَنْ كَثِيرٍ. Majority of the sin Allah doesn't even take you to account for. In the dunya, this is not the place to take account. Allah's kept day of judgment for the Hisab Kitab. Hisab Kitab is on the day of judgment. Allah doesn't take you to account for every wrong and every transgression and every sin that you and I may commit in the dunya. Allah says, لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا. This is just so that they taste a part of what they've done. This is just a taster for what is to come in the akhirah if you do not make tawbah and turn to Allah. This is Allah's mercy upon His makhluk, people like you and myself, that when they see these tsunamis and earthquakes, they look at themselves, they see their transgressions, they make tawbah and they turn to Allah and they never transgress again. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Secondly, this is not the full punishment of the sin. This is just a taster. Full punishment is in the akhirah when you meet the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My young friends, the point that I'm making here is, when you are wronging Allah, if this is the effect on society, that you're harming others, how much harm do you think you and I are doing to ourselves when we disobey Allah, when we wrong Allah and we transgress? The more you progress in sin, in a nutshell, the more harm that you do, till it gets to a stage, my young friends, that you leave the fold of Islam without even knowing and without even realizing. It's as simple as this. The progression of a sinner is like a thief. You know, a thief, in general, he'll start young. And at the beginning, he'll be scared, he'll be afraid. And before he steals, he'll think about it 20 times. And he'll plot it in his heart and mind how he's going to do it. And he doesn't start with big things. He'll start with something small, something minor. Maybe at home, maybe at school. Maybe steal a small ruler, a small pen. And he'll steal. And after a few days, when he realizes there's no comebacks, he's got away with it, what will he do again? He'll become brave. He's got away with it. He'll do it again. Again, he'll steal another pen, another ruler, something small. He's got away with it again. He'll do it again. He's got away with it again. Every time he gets away with it, he'll become more and more brave and courageous. What will he do next? Now he'll start moving up market. He'll start stealing things of value. It won't be a little pen anymore, a little ruler anymore. He'll move on to things like this, mobiles and things that are of value. He'll keep on stealing. He'll keep on becoming brave, courageous. Now he'll get to a stage where he won't be at the school or at home. He'll start stealing from shops, again very secretly, quietly. He'll become more and more brave. He'll get to a stage where he's not bothered. He's not bothered what people say about him, what people think about him. But it gets to a stage where he'll break into people's houses in daylight. While people are inside, he's not bothered. He'll take a gun, put it to their heads, and take whatever he can, and he will leave. He'll get to a stage where he gets caught. He's not bothered. They'll throw him in prison. He'll come back. He'll do it again. They'll throw him in prison again. 6 months, a year, 2 years, he'll come back, he'll do it again. And that's what he will continue doing till he leaves the world. You know, when a person begins to sin, he does it exactly in the same manner. You know, when we begin sinning and disobeying Allah, you know how we start? We start with this mindset. We'll start with something small, a minor sin. And we'll say, you know what? It's alright, yeah, it's only a minor sin. It's alright, it's only a minor sin. This mindset is khatarnak. It's lethal. Sins are of two types. You have major sins and you have minor sins. Major sins, sins for which there is warning of punishment in the Quran and Sunnah. They're not forgiven till you don't make tawbah. Till you don't stop committing that sin. You have regret and you promise Allah that you will never commit that sin again. They will not be forgiven. Minor sins are the opposite. There's no warning of punishment in the Quran and Sunnah. And you don't have to make tawbah from them. Balki Allah's mercy, that when you commit a minor sin and after that, innal hasanati yudhibna sayyi'at, you commit a good deed, then Allah will wipe away your minor sin. Balki in tajtanibu kaba'ira ma tunhawna anhu nukaffir ankum sayyi'atikum. If you refrain from major sins, Allah will wipe away your minor sins. That's the difference between major sin and minor sin. My young friends, this mindset, when we begin to commit sin, it's only a minor sin. I'll put it right by doing a good deed. It's khatarnak. It's dangerous. Because you know, when you sin, you shouldn't look at the size of the sin. You shouldn't look at whether a sin is major or minor. Balki you should look at who you're committing this crime against. We should look at the magnificence and the greatness of the being that you're wronging. My young friends, you know, sinners, people that transgress, even us people have a criteria. There are certain crimes, depending who they committed against and where they committed, even we can't accept it. God forbid I commit zina. I won't have a problem with my zina, but I'll never be able to tolerate somebody committing zina with his mother. Those that commit guna can't tolerate this guna. Balki, you commit zina with an adult, but if you were to commit zina with a minor, what we call pedophilia, they kill them in prison. Who kills them? Prisoners. Why are they in prison? Because they've broken the law, they've transgressed, they've wronged. But even they've got certain ethics and certain laws. People commit sin in the haram or in the month of Ramadan. Sinners like me can't tolerate it. So even we have a criteria. So when you wrong, disobey, you shouldn't look at the size of the sin, but you shouldn't look at who you're committing this sin against, the greatness and magnificence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you know, to Allah it's all the same, whether it's a major sin or a minor sin. To Allah, what Allah looks at, sin is the name of disobedience. Allah doesn't look at whether it was minor and major. This is Allah's mercy upon us, that Allah will not punish us for these small sins and minor sins, and Allah has made it so that when we do good, they will wipe away our minor sins, and Allah will take us account for the bigger sins, the major sins. This is Allah's mercy. But what Allah will see is that you're disobeying Him, whether it's small or big. What Allah sees is that you have no regard for Him. My young friends, many of you here are fathers. Yeah. Many of you here are fathers. If your child Tell me, my young friends, many of you are children. If your father would tell you to do something, whatever it may be, whether it was small or big, and you didn't do it, would it please your father? It wouldn't please your father, because the way your father sees it and thinks of it is that I told him to do something, whether it was big or small. Your father doesn't look at that. What your father will see is there's no loyalty there. This child of mine has no regard for me, and he disobeys. When you look at the greatness of Allah and His magnificence, my young friends, you will never commit a sin, not even a minor sin. So this is where we begin. We begin with small sins. Just like that thief. He did it once, he got away with it. He'll do it again. Now because we've committed that sin for the first time, we'll do it again the second time. Again a minor sin. We'll do it for a third time. Fourth time. No, still thinking it's a minor sin, not realizing Israr, persistence on minor sin, becomes a major sin. You know, in the olden days, Balki, even still today in Pakistan and India, in the third world countries, they don't have gas. They gather wood, pieces of wood, and that's what they cook their biryanis and karais on, chicken karais. If you've only got one piece of wood, you're not going to be able to cook a chicken vindaloo or a lamb vindaloo. One piece of wood, you're not going to be able to cook a lamb vindaloo. But if you take that one smaller piece of wood, put it in one place, then go get another one, put it in the same place. Go get another small one, put it in the same place. Go get another one, put it in the same place. How long with the small pieces of wood you'll be able to cook the lamb vindaloo? My young friends, you are the lamb vindaloo. I am the lamb vindaloo. The one small sin that you commit is that piece of wood. You might not burn with that one piece of wood, but I swear by His name, you bring another one, you bring another one, you bring another one. It won't be long, never mind burning, you'll be roasted, you'll be finished. This is why Sayyidina Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala relates hadith that the Prophet said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَمُحَقِّرَاتُ الذُّنُوبِ. Beware of these sins which you regard as insignificant, for they will accumulate and they will destroy you. Now what will happen after this? Like the thief, stealing a pen, a ruler, a rubber. He becomes courageous. Now he'll move on to big things. From small sins, you'll now move on to big things. You'll move on to dope. You'll move on to, God forbid, intoxicants. You'll move on to fraud. You'll move on to zulm. And because sins breed sins. You know, the first time you may have committed a major sin, my young friends, it may have taken you 20 years of your life, 25 years of your life. How many people, you know, most of their life, they don't commit major sins like taking dope. And, you know, he's got to the age of, let's say, about 30 years of age. His mates were taking a spliff, they gave him one. Now, at the age of 30, he's taken a spliff for the first time. How many years he was able to refrain from this major sin, taking a spliff? 30 years. Sin breed sin. What do you think will happen the next time? Do you think it will take him another 30 years before he has his next spliff? Do you think it will be now 60 years of age before he takes his next spliff? Oh, my young friends. The next time he takes this spliff will not be another 30 years. Top end. It'll be a month. The third time he does it, it'll not be a month. It'll be a week. The fourth time he does it, it will be a day. Before you know it, he's hooked on it and he's committing it several times a day. Now he's got into the habit of sinning. You know what will happen after this? He'll be deprived of ilm. Ilm and sin don't mix, just like water and oil don't mix. By the grace of Allah, many people are here today. There are many people that are not here today that probably got legitimate reasons, valid excuses. But I assure you there are many people here that are not here today and that have been deprived because of gunas that they are committing. And they don't even know it. How many youngsters, my young friends, that I know personally, who I know were on dope, and I gave them a lecture which I delivered a very long time ago on dope, mother of all evil, but they wouldn't take it. The gunas would deprive them from knowledge. You know, Imam al-Shafi'i, when he sat in the majlis of the great Imam Malik rahimahullah, and he read to him, Imam Malik rahimahullah admired him, you know, because of his intellect. The understanding that he saw in him and the sharpness of his mind, Imam Malik admired the young Shafi'i. And he said to him, Ki inni ara anna Allah alqa nuran fi wajhik, fi qalbiq. Sorry. That I've seen that Allah has placed nur and light inside your heart. فَلَا تُطْفِئْهُ بِظُلْمَةِ الْمَعْصِيَةِ. Don't wipe away this nur that Allah's placed in your heart with the darkness of sin. Balki Imam al-Shafi'i had an ustaz called Waki. Once he complained to Waki, shakawtu ila Waki'in suha hibzi. That, you know what, my memory is very weak. I can't retain things. What do you think was the advice of Waki to the Imam al-Shafi'i? You know, we're talking about people with phenomenal. You should have to read their lives to know these people and their phenomenal taqwa. The level that they were on. He's telling the Shafi'i, فَأَرْشَدَنِي إِلَىٰ تَرْكِ الْمَعَاصِي لَإِنَّ الْعِلْمَ نُورٌ مِّن نُورِ اللَّهِ وَنُورُ اللَّهِ لَا يُؤْتَى لِعَاصِي. He's telling him, you don't commit sin. Why? Because this ilm is light, it's nur from the nur of Allah. And Allah doesn't give this light, this ilm, to anyone that disobeys Him. Yeah, who hasn't heard of Imam Abu Hanifa? How many, look at the acceptance of this individual. How many people in the world to this day follow the fiqh of Abu Hanifa? Majority of the Muslims in the world follow the fiqh of Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi, and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimullah ajma'in. And out of the four, the greatest acceptance is with Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimullah. What level do you think he was on that Allah gave him such acceptance? Such a level, my young friends, that he could actually see the sins of people. Just by looking at you, he could see the sin that you've committed. And he made dua to Allah, Ki Allah, this is too much for me to digest. I beg you, do not reveal the sins of people to me. Stand the whole night in worship. That's why he was called a peg. For how many years he read Fajr Salah with the wudu that he made for Isha. And according to his fiqh, you could only do that if you stay awake the entire night. 2 Qur'ans every day in Ramadan. One during the day, one during the night. What level do you think he was on? And you know what he would say? Sometimes when he would struggle to resolve a problem, he would turn around to his students and say, this is because of some sin that I've committed, that I'm unable to resolve it. They would recall ma asabakum min musibatin fa bima kasabat aydikum. This is because of some sin that I've committed, as a result of which I'm unable to solve this. You know what he would do thereafter? He would make tawbah, he would make istighfar, and stand before the Almighty Allah in prayer. And sometimes in prayer, Allah would reveal the solution. And after namaz, he would say, I hope Allah has forgiven my sin. Ali ibn Khashram would say that Waki, the Ustaz Imam al-Shafi'i, said, whichever book that I saw in his hand, he would memorize all the hadiths. He knew all the hadiths of by heart. SubhanAllah, in those days with chain of narration, thousands and thousands of hadiths. You and I would struggle to memorize one. Balki all our lives, what do we recite in namaz? Qul huwallahu ahad. And it doesn't go past that. And then we say, oh, we're old and weak, we can't do it. Yeah. And these guys, books of hadith, they know every single hadith off by heart with a chain of narration. So he says, I became curious and asked him, what's the secret behind this? That you're able to memorize all these hadiths. He says, it's not rocket science, it's simple. Just don't commit sin.